been enjoying coming in with that song from Royce Banks, the sound of the abundance of rain coming into this show. He is an amazing artist. We just want to give it up for Royce on tonight. Royce Mosley. He had a show this weekend with Regina Bell, but we want to say welcome once again to WFTB 104.1 FM Tab Nashville Gospel Radio Show, also being recorded, Sacrificial Conversations, and we are in the building on tonight. We have a video Zoom call on tonight, and it's going to be an amazing show. We had to bring back Dr. Kendria Driver on tonight because we did not get enough of last week. Monica, hello, how are you doing? I know you had a great day at work, but it's so good to have you in the building on tonight. You want to say hello to the people? What you laughing for, girl? What you laughing for?
So hilarious. So hilarious. Hello, welcome to Teddy and Monica's show, Sacrificial Conversations. And yes, we are we had to get Dr. Kendria back on here because we could not finish on last week. Last week was just an awesome topic. We're dealing with mental health for the month of May. So tonight, guys, will be, I guess, our last show for this month because next Monday is Memorial Day. And so I did tell Mr. Chisholm that we're going to take a break and enjoy the holiday with family. And so tonight we just got to get back into this awesome topic of mental health. I can't get enough of discussing about mental health. Yes.
I'm gonna let you dive on in, Monica, and get this thing rolling because I want to talk more about relationships and relational issues dealing with mental health. I know you had a couple of questions from last week, but first, Kendria, introduce yourself to our people once again. Let them know who you are, a little bit about your background, and just what you do, Kendria. How are you doing, first of all?
Yes. Hello, Kendria.
Yes. So good to be here again this evening with you guys. Thank you for having me on. I'm Kendria Driver. My background is actually, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So with that, I can see patients privately through insurance or private pay, and I have a private practice. Basically, we have a caseload of patients. We really focus on anxiety, depression, just feeling stuck where they are. And my background, I'm in medical social work is where I started, and then I really, really enjoyed the therapy piece of things and really helping people move forward, and just kind of supporting them as they they lead. They're the ones leading the discussions, but it's like really trying to figure out what they need and what they want and what they're coming from, and that's kind of what we really focus on. It's very self-led when it comes to how I work with my clients.
Awesome, Monica. I know you want to go ahead and dive because you had a question from last week that you want to dive in. Because when I get to it, it's going to get a little. We're going to get a little.
He wants to hog up the
tonight.
entire show.
I do. Come on.
So last week, Kendria, we outside the show, we were outside talking, and so you made a very good point. And I was asking you about, when you see an individual, like I was like my daughter, I was like, oh, I think it'd be great if she comes talk to you. And you were like, well, Monica, she has to be the one that wants to come. So can you elaborate on that? Because I'm all for it. But you gave me some pointers last week, like she has to want it.
And that is one of the reasons why I really like working with adults. I don't work with children or adolescents. I only work with adults for that reason. If you're coming to someone for therapy, and you really, at that point, usually you come to the end of yourself where you're like, okay, I have tried to help myself in whatever ways. It's not working, and I'm wasting time. That's one of the resources that we don't get back is our time. So what I work with clients on is specifically people who are on the fence about, when I do a consultation, whether they really need therapy or not. And I'm just like, well, how's your functioning? Do you feel like you're functioning well? Did you feel like you were functioning better in the past and you're going through this season and you just can't seem to get it together and be able to get out of it? Or you've gone through some kind of trauma? So when they're coming to me, it's because they have made their own executive decision that they need help. And there's a willingness there because you can't force someone to want to receive therapy. Now, There are some situations where you can, if it's mandated by a court. But for the most part, that is not how people come to want therapy and to want to better themselves. It's not because someone forced them, because then you will not be vulnerable. You cannot do therapy it's a waste of time to be in therapy if you're not willing to open yourself up to doing the work. And it can be very hard. You may have to go back into childhood trauma or things that have done to you that you maybe didn't even think were a big deal. But through, if they're a good therapist who asks you the right questions, you realize that, wow, I do have issues with how I was raised or a relationship that was toxic or whatever it is. But no one can really force you into that. I mean, that's a lot of self-work that you have to come to grips with and be willing to do. There's just no talking someone into that.
Okay. Yeah, man, she answered my question because just because I want her, I might see something and I think she should do it, but you made a good point. If she doesn't want to come and share anything about herself, then it's kind of like a waste of time, right?
Well, I will say we also talked about planting the seeds. Those questions you ask about. Well, how are you doing? And if you get a hint that there's some struggle there, well, do you think that something's changed? Have you always been going through? If you're really struggling, is it school? Is it a relationship? A lot of the especially as a therapist, and not everyone's a therapist, so people don't always know this, but like asking questions. We as people we come up with these assumptions that we think we know what's going on. We think we know the right answers. But there's so much to be said for just asking people questions and it's like leading them, planting the seeds, dropping the breadcrumbs to lead them to do the self-reflection. They may not even have the answer for you right then, but they may sit with that later on and be like, wow, how do I answer that? How am I doing? Things are really hard right now. I don't think it was always like this, and really coming to terms with that. So there's a lot of power in asking questions and having that person sit with that. Even if you feel like they don't want to talk or whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with asking you a question. No one has to answer it, but I will 9 times out of 10, they're going to process something there. And it could be later on down the road, they come back to you and say, you asked me this and I really thought about it. And I think I need XYZ. So you may not know what to say. You may not be able to give that advice right away, but you can ask questions that lead that person to, realize on their own that maybe I do want therapy, which would be way more powerful than telling someone to get therapy.
Okay. I like that answer.
Are you releasing? You let me?
Yes, I'm releasing you, Mr. Chisholm. He is hilarious.
Yes, y'all, I have to let you all understand why I'm so excited about jumping into this conversation is because I see a lot in relationships. I'm in a long-going relationship of 35 years, and I've witnessed what being in a healthy relationship can do for your life. I've witnessed what being in a relationship, and it can be toxic because both parts make it toxic. That's how long I've been in my relationship. We've seen the bad, the good, the ugly, the ups, the downs, the valleys, the high peaks. We've seen it all over the 35 years. And I know that mental health plays a lot in having a successful relationship. So I really want to dive off into this thing because I really want people to understand what a healthy relationship can do for your life. So my first question I want to start out with, Ms. Driver, do you think that couples should get counseling before they get married or before they get into deep relationships?
I definitely think that they should. I think that pre-marriage counseling is very helpful because sometimes you may not even realize the things that you should be focusing on. There might be questions asked and exercises that you go through, and then you realize, wow, we actually are not aligned on, I don't know, how many kids we both want to have or what our parenting style would be versus how we were raised in our families. And so I think as you can imagine, I'm all for all kinds of therapy. Any self work that anyone can do, whether it be books they read or, having a circle of good community that kind of holds them accountable for behavior and things like that. I'm all for it. So definitely, I think that pre-marriage counseling is very, very helpful because again, you don't know what you don't know, and any groundwork you can create to create that foundation where you are aligned as much as possible. I mean, life is still going to throw things at you that you did not expect. But if you could at least start out with some guidance, a couples group, with things like that, where you have that accountability, it can only help. It definitely can only help.
You want to jump in?
No, I don't have to jump in. Go ahead.
I'm locked and loaded right now, y'all. I'm locked and loaded. Can someone love you deeply and still be emotionally unhealthy for you going into a relationship?
Someone can love you based on their own definition of love.
Wow.
It may not work. It may not work for you though. What couples have a hard time with when there really is a lot of conflict, especially in kind of like maybe newer relationships where you're just trying to make this relationship work. You can only love it at the capacity. You can only be loved at the capacity that person can love. I mean, and they can experience love. So if someone has had a lot of toxic relationships, maybe they didn't have love, an example of really good love or relationships in their own household with their parents, then they're going to go into other relationships, and their capacity is low because they have absolutely no idea what it's like to be vulnerable, to have empathy, to communicate well. And so I have seen this, and I will say, when you're trying to understand the landscape of relationships in your 20s, wherever, I've also experienced this, and this also helped me to end relationships that weren't healthy when I realized that person just wasn't capable. It wasn't about them not liking me enough. It wasn't about not trying hard enough to make it work. But there was just this like ceiling where they couldn't get past it. They just didn't have the capacity, the bandwidth. They didn't have examples. So, and you really can't blame people for that. So I think that's sometimes the struggle is someone can say the words, but as far as the actions of really trying to love someone, it's at what capacity though? At what capacity? And that goes both ways.
Right.
So that's why, again, that's the inner work you do to say, this, and also just having an idea of like, this is my love language. This is how I want to be loved and how I accept love. And there are a number of different types of love languages. Not everyone accepts it the same way. And also not everyone can give that love the same way. So quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts. I know people who are married years, and their spouse just not a gift giver. I mean, even if you wrote it down and said, please buy me this, there's some kind of mental block. I mean, I've talked to many other women about that, and their husbands, for whatever reason, it's just not their thing. But it is that spouse's thing to receive gifts, but that may not be someone else's. So it's really about the capacity. And sometimes even if it isn't your language, it's the empathy of knowing that person sees love that way, and I need to try. Okay. I need to be willing to try to give them the quality time. So someone could be willing and wanting so badly to love you the right way, but you really have to sit back and say, okay, do they have the capacity? From what I know about this person, can they do that, or am I asking for water out of this rock? Because that could be it's so common. It really is very common.
We are over here laughing because of our lives and what happened. As growing up as a child, okay, we weren't big on giving gifts in my house. I say me in my household.
You said we. Okay? So I said, it could be in your we.
And that's why I can say that over the years of being a child and not being, seeing that, not having that word, you see an example of giving gifts and knowing what giving gifts look like. In my household, it was circumstances to where we just wasn't able to afford to do it. Okay. So right. I didn't get gifts as a child, so I didn't know it because that's just our lifestyle. So when I met my wife, and I didn't realize this was a woman that came from giving gifts. But we have to understand too, some people give gifts because they don't know how to give love. So they give you things because they don't know how to give love. So they give you material things. So we got to understand and put everything in the right placement. So giving gifts and not getting gifts can be two different situations. But I didn't understand it, so I didn't know how to give gifts to my wife at first. So when I met her in college, I was like, wow, do you want something for your birthday? And me not knowing how to give gifts, this was my first real relationship. I was like, she said, no, you don't have to give me nothing. So ding, ding, ding in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to get her nothing because she said no. And that was my example. No, don't give gifts. As soon as the birthday came, the whole day shifted, y'all. She got so upset with me. And this was the first part of it. This was when we were 19. I didn't understand it. I was going off an example that I only knew. I only saw that gifts did not matter. So I put that in my psyche to say, okay, gifts don't matter. Not knowing that was a love language of my wife. My wife got totally upset. I had to go that same exact day, go get a cake, go get a gifts, go get everything I had to get that day. And since then, I've been trying, but I still struggle with giving gifts because I procrastinate, and that's because of the psyche or what I've been taught. I have not understood how important, but I'm getting better. And I hate to say that so many years that it took me to get better. Help me, doctor. Now I'm messing with you. Help me out, because I that is something that I feel like when you don't have those examples and you don't see those things growing up and understanding that it could create a something that you don't understand someone else's love language. So I'm gonna leave that alone. You have anything you want to say about that, Miss Chisholm?
No, I'm just glad that you abide by the love language, because if not, then it could be a whole lot of unsuffered consequences.
It's a very good point. Yeah.
So Kendra, how do you, is that why couples need to, I guess, get therapy? Because we were in love, and this is, it was my birthday, and I'm like, my thought was, how dare you ask me? Of course, you're going to say no. But I'm like, on the other end, I'm like, you should know to give me a gift or give me something. So I guess I'm asking, is that one of the questions? It seems like it needs to be, because
love language.
It's love language.
Yeah, love language.
Right. Well, I guess I guess my question for you is, do you mean, is it something that you would have therapy for? Or, because this is something also that the whole purpose of dating in my mind is you're a detective. You're being a detective to find out the answer to these questions. So, because it's either you're in this relationship, you're getting to know someone, months are going by, years, however long. And if you are dating, I don't know if there's an appropriate way to do it specifically, but if you're paying attention and focusing on the person and just how and seeing how the relationship is going, you should be gleaning some of these things, because I think it's going to come out sooner than later, or that either you guys have different love languages and you're having conflict because of it. So, my mindset is you're dating because you're trying to learn about this person. And so if you're asking the questions and paying enough attention to what's happening, you should be able to answer like, okay, this is how this person receives love, or this is how they give it to me, or you're able to communicate that. And so not everyone gets, premarital counseling or therapy in a relationship. I think it's when you realize that there's a conflict, and no matter how much you're talking about it, it's still not being resolved, then you might decide to get therapy. But it's helpful in dating to be able to be paying attention if you are, I guess, being purposeful about the dating, in the beginning of the relationship. And before marriage. So I think that's kind of where, in general, people will start to learn these things again when you're being intentional about trying to get to know someone. It's difficult, though, because obviously, like what you were saying, when you're in love, a little bit of the mix of that is called infatuation. You get infatuated, you're really into this person, and sometimes we completely gloss over some of the the bigger questions about, I know I have these great feelings about the person, but are we a right fit? Am I really asking the hard questions to make sure that even if we're coming to the table with different ideas, that there's some way that we can connect, that we, down the road, we are aligned. But a lot of relationships end when you realize that when the sparkle wears off, what's the substance that's keeping it together?
Right.
And again, that's kind of asking the questions and really trying to get to know someone. And when you find out that maybe this is not, you're not connected the way you thought, what do you do about that? Do you stay in there? Do you end it? Again, that's kind of the whole part of dating if you're doing it with purpose. I think that's probably the best answer.
So in doing it with purpose, though, my question is, how do you stay patient with someone and abandon yourself or abandon your feelings when going through those cycles of trying to figure someone else out? Because you have to understand, I feel like we're still figuring each other out 35 years later.
Well, yes.
And but I asked myself, have I abandoned some of the things that I want in my life? And I feel like I have, and I feel like you've abandoned some of the things you like, but that was in order to please or in order to serve each other better. So is that a part of something that we need to digest or make sure that we understand and getting our mental self together in those situations?
So you're saying, when you're in the relationship,
right?
Being able to, I think when we discussed this last week, I think it was that the idea of, giving that person grace. Like I said, when people are dating, I don't know, I feel like it's not always very clear what you might be looking for. And I think we're all just learning as well. Sometimes people don't know what they need. But I feel like when there's conflict, there's conflict. When something's not working, I don't know if you can avoid it, and so, but I will say though, it does make it a little bit more, I would say easier, but more productive when both people are kind of doing their inner work to kind of better themselves and coming together in that place. If you've got one person who has really good mental health and the other person isn't there yet, or isn't, focused on it, it's really, really hard to be aligned and to get the answers that you're asking for in a relationship. I think it's very, very difficult. And so, I don't know. I mean, I think, but at the end of the day, I think both those individual people are still growing. The question is, are you growing together? In order to, at the end of the day, you want to become better as a couple and better as a person. And so I think, and there's sacrifice as well, but I don't know, I think that can be a really tricky thing because, you're still growing. You're still trying to figure out who you are. Two is supposed to become one, but at the end of the day, you're still two very individual people who have, again, the individual love languages. So, I don't know, I think, and every relationship is different.
Yeah.
When it comes to the conflict, I think when it becomes toxic, like if you're trying to make something work, over time, and maybe you're seeking the counsel, you're receiving, whether it be therapy or you've got small groups or whatever you're working on. I think also there is a level of, especially those who are Christian and they believe they hear from God. When I am really big on telling people, to really tap into like whether they're losing their peace or not. Because it's one thing to have conflict in a relationship and work on things, but it's one thing when you just don't have peace.
Right.
And I have seen that a lot with my clients as well, when they're really trying to make something work, but but this is in general, in life in general. It could be a job that you're trying to obtain or so many different things. At the end of the day, we all go through strife, but when you are battling the innate sense of, I just don't have peace about this, or I'm always in conflict and this is becoming toxic because we're always fighting. I think there's this level of, do you have peace? And that's my key question to ask my clients about, like, should we really be working on saving this? Do you think that this brings you peace at the end of the day? And so I think that's one of the questions when we're working in relationships, when it's about like, do I stay? Is this healthy? Can we work on this? Are we growing? do you have peace? If you're praying about something, have you gotten feedback that this is, that we're working towards the same goal, that we're both aligned? You'll have seasons of conflict. Everyone does, but I think usually when you realize, like, when you look back and say, okay, have I had peace in this?
Yeah.
Or has this been a struggle?
And that's the key to it all, is getting to the place of peace.
Right. And then, and in relationship as well, it's a lot of give and take, because you can't always have your way. I can't always have my way. And so it's got to be some kind of compromise. And to me, that's a part of the love as well, because if I truly love you, either I'm going to show you some grace and say, okay, babe, you're right. Because I should have showed you some grace because I did say no. But deep down, I know, I shouldn't have left it up as an assumption of you going to just do it.
Right.
I should have just said yes. So I think it's a bounce back and forward. And then that part of it, and I like the peace, because now that we're older, the peace is very important.
It's important the older you get, but my thing is, you should be able to find that peace from the start to the beginning, because this entity could be so great. But see, what happens is we'll take a certain behavior, we'll take a behavior from someone and think it's love, but it's actually control. It's actually someone controlling you from something that they're doing to you. So I'm just want to make sure that we understand how to. Good question I can throw out here real quick, Kendra. How do you, a mentally sound person, how do you have a successful argument? If you could, because when I think about the things that me and her go through now, as older married couple, I think we understand how to argue now, because we understand our mental capacity towards each other now. We've been through the hurt, we've been through the pain, and I mean, can I put? Is it okay for me to say what I'm gonna say, baby? I just want to make sure.
I don't know what you're gonna say.
It's so.
You can say whatever you want to say.
So, y'all, when I say these things, y'all, it's so much that we've been through, Kendra, and I'm glad that we're talking to you, because I want people to understand we've been through bankruptcy. We've been through losing a child. We've been through fidelity. We've been through parent hurts. We've been through a lot of situations that we have healed from. And after that situation and we made it through, we knew that we were not going to take each other down those scenarios again, because we did not want to hurt anymore. Now, us growing older and us maturing has definitely made us be better stewards over what you said, the serving part, and understanding each other's personality, and where, finding the peace with each other. Because all I want for you now is peace. But I think that's why when I asked the question, how do people, mentally sane people, I think we argue different now because we are mentally okay now. And I hate to say this, why should it take so long for married couples to get there? Because it's two people working together for one goal. But what happens is married couples are fighting two different fights. We're not fighting the same fight. So you can jump in and help me out right there.
I mean, that's a huge topic on its own. Like healthy conflict resolution, healthy communication in general. So I will say, whether it be in a relationship or in any conversation that could lead to conflict, I will say the hardest thing to do, but the most important thing to do, is have active listening. Active listening. This is when you can accurately, you may not agree with what you're hearing, but you can actively hear what the person is saying and repeat back to them. So what I hear you say is, again, no one said you had to like it. I think that's an issue with people, also because we are so ready to jump in with our argument to shut down. And I mean, I'm guilty of this. I mean, if you really, especially if you trigger someone and you really, really hit that button. And when it comes to relationships, people usually know the buttons to press. There's things to say that it's just like, well, cut. And so the active listening is the self-control to be able to sit there and hear someone out, repeat back and repeat. So I hear you, because also, like what you said, sometimes you may not even be arguing about the same thing. I may go back and listen to a client repeat a story about fighting with that person's, their spouse, and I'm like, okay, so what were you trying to say? Okay, so what did you think he was trying to say? Are you sure that's what he was saying though? Because from what you said, I'm not exactly. And so then now we've got some doubt, like, oh, maybe that's not what he meant. So it just, active listening is being able to have the wherewithal and the self-control to at least listen to the person. It does not mean that because you're listening to them that you agree with anything coming out of their mouths, but the exercise and it's a muscle you build to be able to bite your tongue and listen to what the person said. That goes miles. Sometimes people just want to be heard. And this is as a therapist. I am not lying to anyone and telling them that I can fix all their problems. I have realized that a lot of times people just finally want someone to listen to them.
Wow.
And that sometimes that's I will say 90% of what I do is probably just listening. People are just like, they'll end an hour session and be like, and all I did was ask questions and listen. I haven't solved anything. We didn't create any goals. We didn't do a treatment plan. But it's amazing that after that, they'll be like, wow, I just feel so much, because when they say it out loud, sometimes they fix it themselves. They say, oh, I didn't know I felt that way until I just said that out loud. Okay. So active listening is listening and then being able to repeat back. So even if you don't agree, the person knows you heard them. So this is where that grace and empathy comes in. Now, it's one thing to be able to really, have a conflict about something when you at least know you're arguing or discussing the same thing. You're on the same playing field. So that's one thing. And then it's, I'm sure people have heard the I statement. It's not about you. It's like, when it's rude to put your finger at people. You. That we're not doing that. It's, I feel this way. So you can say, when you do such and such, this is how it makes me feel. We're taking the judgment and the accusation away from the statement. And it's more about, how I feel. Like I feel disconnected, or I feel, I guess, targeted or triggered when you bring up my mother, or you compare me to so-and-so. This is how I feel. Another thing I would definitely want to tell people in general, and I say this to people all the time, you are in control of your own feelings. You cannot tell people how they should feel. We're not in the business of controlling people's feelings. This happens all the time. The phrase, you shouldn't feel that way. I want everyone to stop saying that. You cannot tell people that. You have no idea what they're coming from, what's attached to what's going on and what's in their mind. So I find it very insulting when someone says, well, you really shouldn't feel it. You shouldn't feel that way. Says who? Says who? That's not, I'm not doing that to my clients. I'm not telling them how to feel. We honor the fact that for whatever reason, this is how people feel. Now we can discuss, the situation around it. But people, they feel the way they do. Finding out why they feel that way. Now that's important. Did I do something to make them feel that way? So this is why those I statements where we talk about how we feel, not what the person did. I felt let down when you chose this over our date night or whatever it is. So I think that those are really important. It's the active listening, because it takes so much self-control. You can imagine, just like when you get heated, you just get interrupted all the time. People just get aggravated because they can't get the words. They can't even say how they feel because they're getting interrupted. So that really, people start to get very heightened when they are not allowed to just share how they feel. And then on top of that, told that they shouldn't feel that way. So just removing that phrase from our vernacular is important. So again, and then being able to be vulnerable and speak to how, now that's a muscle as well. Not everyone likes being vulnerable. Not everyone wants to admit that they, felt some kind of ways about something, but you're in a relationship. So if there's no one else to be vulnerable with, it would be this person. If there's anyone we're going to be vulnerable, you're in a relationship, and so these are the things that we work on in therapy, is the willingness to, because if you cannot be honest and talk about how something might harm or be hurtful or that you need something from someone, and that you're not perfect, then herein lies a major problem, because we can't communicate if we can't get to that level of vulnerability. So that is also, those are kind of just like highlights of, I guess, conflict resolution, keeping our cool, and obviously trying not to yell. I always try to tell people, especially, it sounds like very stereotypical, but women, lowering your voice if you can. We tend, I don't think we even notice, but we tend to get higher in our voices when the more frustrated we get, higher pitched and yelling. And so the idea of being able to lower your voice and be conscious of that, I think that it makes a difference. And so, because I don't think people like to be screeched at. I don't know. That's probably the best word I can use.
Yes.
No one wants to be screeched at. I think these are things that just are triggering, and you just pile. And it's honestly a race to the bottom. You're not going any higher. You're really just kind of going down to the bottom. So I think that these are the things that I have spoken numerous times to my clients about when it comes to, and I practice this myself in marriage as well. I mean, because I see what happens when I don't, and it's something I have to be so cognizant of, because again, when I get really triggered, I start to get my voice higher, and I'm really, I start to escalate, and that's no one likes that,
right?
So these are some basic, fundamental ideas as far as like trying to just stay calm, just trying to be able to have an adult conversation. This is why I work with adult conversation where you can be heard,
and that
the other person can be heard.
Monica, you got something you want to throw on real quick?
No, I'm gonna you throw, because you over there really, really smiling.
Church, where Pastor Darren Freeman and Lady Adrienne Lewis Freeman are our leaders. We are the church where we love God and love God's people. Remember, we want you here. We want you
here. Well, I'm smiling, Kendra, because you have walked down the first
street.
Yes, you have walked down the first half of our marriage. You have walked down that whole first half. And you're diving into the middle side of it. But I got a couple of quick things I want to throw at you. And I'm throwing these questions to ask, would this create a healthy relationship for certain people, particularly someone who's been, in a relationship or marriage where it was unfaithfulness that went on, or been in a relationship to where they always felt like they needed to have someone giving them validation or something like this. So a couple of quick questions I want to ask for you. And Monica, you jump in if you want to say something. Do you think it's okay for couples to check each other's phones?
Okay, so what is our motivation?
I'm just saying, for trust issues, for a mental, especially someone who has been in a relationship to where they had mistrust going in the relationship. If you're going into another relationship, or just period, and it could be someone who has jealousy issues,
or controlling issues,
yes.
Well, so I guess I would need to know the motivation as far as, now, if we're checking, is this an open agreement that both?
That's what I'm asking.
Everyone
Open agreement for the relationship across the board, not just one person. I'm talking about across the board. Everything I'm saying to you now is across the board.
Okay, so this is not someone sneaking while the other person's in the shower and putting the code in. Okay, because yes, I've talked to clients about this too before. So yes, exactly. So there's nothing. It's all above board. Everyone's in agreement. I think that. So it sounds like for the person who has the trust issue, who feels that they need to do that, I don't know if it's both or if it's a specific person in the relationship who really needs that. If both are okay with that, I don't see that there's a problem with that. I have the code to my husband's phone. I mean, he needs to get to my phone. He knows the code.
There you go.
I don't think he's randomly checking it, but like the code, is available because if I need to say, hey, can you go on my phone and get me the address from that text message? He can get the phone off the counter and put it in and be like, okay, here's the address.
Okay.
And it's,
okay.
For us, right. It's not deeper than that.
But and that's not, let's stop right there because I don't want to get too far ahead. I want to make sure I get clarity and make sure I let people understand that that's being healthy. And the only reason why I said that is because people have to understand when you have a open dialogue with your wife, and I'm comfortable as a man to sit my phone anywhere where my wife can get to it, and it goes vice, both ways. And I'm just giving. I threw that out there as healthy things. Is that a healthy practice to have? Also, another one I was going to throw out: silent treatments. Is that a good tool to use in relationships?
Okay, can you elaborate on that silent treatment? What you mean?
Silent treatment by both parties. I'm not just talking about from the woman's side or the man's side. I'm throwing these questions at you because I want to get some good advice because I always try to leave our people with some good things to make sure that we understand these are certain things that you should be open to. I feel like every man should be okay with his phone being available. And that's the reason why I threw that out there. I feel like every woman should be open to her phone being available. That brings on a trust. You should never have to not have or feel like you cannot do that. That's just me personally. And that's what we've done over 35 years. Let's move on. Silent treatments. I said silent treatments because we've both done this. And we've taken silent treatments and we've abused each other with silent treatments. So that's why I asked you is silent treatments, is there any good to silent treatments?
I guess I'm asking, okay, so when you said silent treatment, let's say we had an argument, and so you mean like if we walking around not talking to each other for a couple of days?
Absolutely. Or even just when we know, I say hours. I'm not even gonna give it days because hours is too long. When you're in the same household and it's a conflict. When you go 2 to 3 hours and you're walking past each other and you haven't discussed a situation, that could bring too much mental capacity to make you start thinking anger, start thinking all the bad things I want to think about you as my wife, and it starts to bring up the things that you did the other day. So that's why I say that we have to understand that this thing about mental health, it is way deeper than us. The word you said was peace, but I'm trying to stay.
I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Is it good? Come on, doctor.
So silent treatment, to me, that would be the antithesis. It's the opposite of emotional intelligence for me. It is such an easy thing to succumb to the silent treatment because, but I will say, if we really want to be specific, it's about the motivation here. So basically, people do that. They shut down. It's a lack of being able to communicate well. But sometimes, if you want to consider it to be healthy, the only way you could think about that is if you both are agreeing that you are having a disagreement, and obviously in a household things need to continue. Kids need to, we got activities, you've got things. So it's like the agreement of let's agree to disagree right now. The communication's still there. We're going to still talk about stuff, but we don't need to linger on this topic that we cannot agree on. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to walk right past you for the rest of the day and not even make eye contact you. Or when you call me and I'm at the grocery store, I'm going to immediately press end on that because it depends on how you're using it. Because sometimes we don't, again, when your household is running and you got work to go to, you got things to do, you have to work together. You can if you're in a job and you got colleagues you don't get along with, just because you still have to work. So it's just the idea of the bigger purpose. So I work with some clients to say, okay, is there a safe time that you can schedule if you cannot hash it out right away so that you can put that to rest and move on in a healthy manner? Can you schedule that at the end of the day, you're going to regroup? That it doesn't linger. There's that, I don't know if it's specifically where it was, as far as a verse, but don't let the sun go down on your wrath. We don't want to go to bed and go on, days and days and days and let the anger fester because it will fester. It becomes resentment. And that is very unhealthy. You do not want the silent treatment to become resentment. So, but it may not be practical that we have an hour or two to fight out our grievances about, what does the toilet paper go up or down, or did you put the toilet seat down? Like, and or it could be obviously more important than that. But there's all these little things all the time that can be frustrating. So the silent, I don't want to call it silent treatment, but then there are boundaries we put up that say, hey, we have to go on with our day. I'm open to discussing this, but let's table this until later on this evening when the kids are in bed. We can sit down and discuss this so that you can still communicate, because you still need to communicate. Now that's healthy. So I wouldn't call that silent treatment. That's me as having boundaries and saying this, I'm at my capacity for this conversation. That's emotional intelligence to say that.
Yes.
It is not emotional intelligence to shut down and not make eye contact, not answer their text messages. And that's sometimes where we go to, because we use it as we pull back on communication to use it as a punishment. That's not what our words should be. We're not punishing people. We're not pulling away from them so we can punish them. So, but sometimes we can't agree, and sometimes you just need time. Sometimes things get really heated and frustrated and you need time. There's nothing wrong with that, but let the person know that I can't talk about this right now because I can see that we're disagreeing. So let's take a breather and we'll talk about this tonight, but you're still going to talk to your spouse. You're still going to talk to them throughout the day. I think that's kind of, within a boundary, so I wouldn't call that silent treatment. That's different.
Wow. Go ahead, girl. You over there smiling. I need you. Come on.
Okay, so for me, I do the silent treatment, but mine is so that I can process my feelings in the things that we have discussed. So that's why I look at in a silent treatment wise. But then I guess with the silent treatment, if you have something that you all are discussing and your spouse really don't see your point of view, you don't see each other's point of view, and it's kind of like one of those things where either he's going to have to give in or you're going to have to give in. And sometimes it's where neither wants to give in. So it stays to me at that kind of like silent in a sense, because we can still get on our day, but that topic still hasn't been resolved. So we just cohabitating with each other. Does that make sense? Because
it does make sense.
It's not getting resolved because he's not bulging. I'm not bulging. I have reason how I feel about this, and he has his reason, and we can't come to an agreement.
So in that situation, you're saying that there's no realm for compromise. It's just like it has to be. It's either this way or your way, or just there's no meeting in the middle.
Yeah, because it's like like, hey, I think it's this, and I say, well, I think it's this, and so he might think my way is stupid, and then I might think his way, like he just don't understand. I don't understand why he don't understand why I feel the way I feel. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it doesn't to me get resolved.
And that can be definitely tricky because it depends on what we're talking about, obviously. I think for me, when I've really worked on that with clients, it's usually about, the specific topic and how it affects. Does it affect their day to day? Is it something that you can agree to disagree with and still have a healthy relationship and not be resentful of the fact that you say the world is round and he thinks it's flat? I mean, okay. But again, it's based on about the subject matter, because again, obviously some things are detrimental. There are people who have ideological differences. Like, this is the kind of church our family should go to. No, this is how I was raised, and we should be going to this kind of church. Now that could be pretty intense. The question is, okay, in a situation like that, could we alternate? If you really love this church and that person likes it, can the family alternate Sundays? Can we go 1 month, 1 day a month to this one? Is there any? It really depends on the topic we're talking about and how detrimental it is to the functioning of your household and your family. Because sometimes you don't have to agree on everything. But it really depends on the topic. And if it's something that really would that tear the relationship apart, would it rock the foundation of how you all live your lives and how you're and the peace in your household? Because then that's a bigger problem. Now that might be something where we go into an actual therapy. We have to go to therapy for, because either it didn't come up in the beginning when you were dating or in the beginning of marriage. But again, life is dynamic and it changes and things come up that you didn't know. And so I think I know people who do marriage counseling like once a year or ever as tune-ups. Like they're not in it long term, but sometimes these things come up and people will do counseling as tune-ups because they hit these points where there is no, or seasons of it where there's no budging. And again, you're fighting. You do not want resentment. You don't want that deep-seated resentment, because that's when you get to the point where you allow things to fester. You will look at that person one day and not see the person that you married or wanted to be with. When you allow it to decay, it's like a cancer. And so I think that's what we are fighting against is it, how big of a deal is that thing to your functioning and your ability to give grace to that person. So it really depends on the topic, because sometimes it might be infidelity. I mean, hopefully there's a hard no on that, but I'm saying there are certain things where it's like, can we come back from that? It could, for some, it could be, yes, we could work on. So somebody could be like, one and done. There's no coming back. It really, really, really depends, because again, counseling can really bring people back together and really heal some real deep wounds. It can. It's hard work to do that. It takes forgiveness that might be above and beyond what certain people might think they're capable of doing, because they've never had to do it before in their lives. So it can be difficult, but you can come back from things. But it really, really, it's so hard to say because it depends on the topic we're talking about and how it affects the marriage, the household, children.
Absolutely.
It really does.
So
it's a hard one.
So we're coming to a close, but I have to get this last question in. So
yes.
This question I'm about to ask is going to be for all of us. It's going to be for Monica first, me second, and then you last, Kendra, because we all are married, and I really, really need this question to really, really pierce or grab the attention of the people that's listening on tonight. My question on tonight: what does a healthy form of love in a relationship looks like to you? And explain it to us. What does a healthy relationship of love, or what does it look like, healthy love in a relationship?
The first thought came to my mind was unconditional love. That means you go to ends of the earth to care for this person, provide for this person. You put yourself on the back burner for this person. You give this person your all. So that's what I think that it looks like for me. So that really unconditional. I want that fluff. I need that unconditional, hardcore, really showing me that you truly, truly loving, caring, drop everything to make sure I'm seeing about taking care of. I'm sick. You're there for me. It shouldn't be a thought or something I could ask for that you couldn't do.
I like that, and that comes from a woman's perspective. Mine is going to be a little different. A healthy relationship to me, or love, or that I receive from you, is you give me safety. You let me understand that I can be who I want to be around you. I don't have to hide nothing from you. Then, even though we've hurt each other, and I've hurt you, you've hurt me, we've been able to get past that and still be able to look at each other and know that we've healed and truly healed, because trauma can make you go down paths and you can't make it back from, and we've made it back from it. So to see the safety that I have in you, to know that I can tell you anything and know that you're going to keep it, you're going to hold it, and then you look out for my safety. You constantly serve me. You constantly look out for me. I don't have to ask. Kendra, when I say this girl makes my plates to this day, I don't have to get up and make a plate if I don't want to, but I still try to turn around and serve her. Kendra, I'm going to throw it over there to you, but the biggest thing I can say as a man is the safety that I have with you. All right, Kendra, we're going to take us on home on the night.
I think that everything that both of you explained wraps this up perfectly, pretty much, because I think overall what you've explained is the ability to look in a relationship, when I'm looking at a healthy relationship between these two people, the growth, that there's room for growth, and feeling that there is space for that you can be vulnerable in that, because if you can't be vulnerable, then you can't grow. And so when I look at a healthy relationship, all the things that both of you are saying, that you're in a system, in a household where you have the freedom to grow, that you have the peace, you have someone who gives you grace, and that because if you, life is so dynamic, you need that. You need to be able to flex and pivot, and so when things are rigid and hard, there is no room. And so I think that what I've heard both of you saying is time has taught you, and you guys have grown in your marriage. You've had some hard seasons, but you've been able to grow because you've been able to give each other grace, and you've had peace in that. So I think that is what I see as healthy, is people who have the availability in their relationship, that their spouse allows them to be who they need to be and to grow in a healthy way. So you can look back and say, wow, I'm a better person now. We are both, not just one, both of us are better than when we were when we were. And that, it takes a lot for that. It takes work for you to do that. So again, 35 years is something to commend, and it is amazing, because I'm on like 8 years, so 35 is amazing. So I just want to honor both of you for sharing and your vulnerability in this, because I hope people learn from that, because it's a journey. There's seasons. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect person, that you can be with. You can't. That's not how that works. So,
well, Monica, I'm gonna let you take us on home today, darling.
Well, you have been listening to Tab Nashville Gospel Radio, as well as Sacrificial Conversations on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed our mental health for the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Kendra.
Kendra, we truly appreciate
you all. And just remind you, we will not be on the radio next Monday due to Memorial Day. So I hope you all have a safe holiday. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us. So we will see you. It will be June.
Yes.
The first Monday in June. Be blessed, you all.
Be blessed.